the basic teaching that's really interesting. I'll take that Christian parents have a right, as she said, to withdraw from primary school sex lessons. And I'm thinking that Christian teachers have not got a right if they're in an unhappy circumstance of teaching at a school which is full on bad for the other side. Like they have got a right to withdraw and say, I'm not going to teach this. It's generally rubbish.
No, I mean it's very difficult because they can be seen as going against reasonable management instruction. And we've actually people do have sometimes creative ways of getting around this, by we've had several teachers who told us, I just removed those slides from the presentation, something like that, and she's delivering it without the picture of two men getting married or whatever. And so, but when if they get found out doing that, then they can get into quite bad trouble. But I think ultimately their consciences should be respected. So if it violates your conscience to be speaking a certain way and trying to be teaching something, then there ought to be some kind of redress for them if they're sacked for it. And so they should. I think teachers in that situation who see that material coming up is something that I really can't sort of conscience deliver, need to speak to management about it and say that, and they are obliged to consider accommodating that in terms of someone else maybe deliver that something. It really doesn't stop it from being delivered, but at least they won't have to deliver it themselves. I think that's a better route than the kind of just taking out slides. If we get found out having done that, then that seems quite negative.
You use the words short and order, which I fully agree with you. Legally, I'm just asking a question. Perhaps Steve, you will get used to it. Legally, it's not much that you can stay on.
Well, I mean, they do have a right for their religious belief to be respected. And so that protected characteristic. So they have got legal rights. But the school can say we can't accommodate. Unfortunately, we've tried to accommodate you. I'm afraid we can't because we don't have any teachers, and that's that. But it is worth raising it because they do have to consider it. They said that the balancing then of the rights and the respect for the religious rights.
There's a really important moment now with the legal cases that we were just showing you there. These are test cases because there's not a lot of brave teachers that are prepared to go as far. These guys that we're supporting because they know
what you guys are doing, and it's fantastic. But the thing that I picked up is these cases haven't been won.
That's it.
You're fighting.
That's it. But what you don't hear about are the ones behind the scenes where we've helped teachers be able to argue the case in their schools to say this is unreasonable material for this reason or that reason or this reason. Or I don't think we should be teaching gender identity. Did you realise that these resources are doing excellent work? Look at that report, Miriam Case. I'm going to share. Prime Minister looked at it. I absolutely realise that. I'm just a busy head teacher. It's just I'm so expensive the fact and things. So there are ways in which we've helped teachers to be able to change things. But we haven't got case law yet that's really helpful to say that teachers, they didn't want to teach this, they were snapped and you shouldn't have done that. We haven't got that yet. So that's why we need
one of the things
by these cases.
One of the things that is a big issue at the moment is pronouns, and can you be forced? Can a teacher be forced to use the wrong pronouns for a child? And we think that shouldn't. The law is unclear at the moment, but it is effectively forced speech, which oughtn't to be permitted. And no one's hasn't decided yet. So that's a kind of open question at the moment. And so we do speak to a lot of teachers, and quite often they say, this is happening, but we don't want to risk our jobs. What can we do? And sometimes you can help, gently write a letter, and you know, sometimes things can be resolved that way. But yeah, thanks for the question.
There are some positive sounds. I mean, the NHS latest guidance to schools says that you shouldn't have to use the pronouns, what precedent to be with. So there's a bit of a pendulum swing back in the other direction. It's like the devil's overplayed his hand somewhat in these things. It's got so bizarre and so harmful to children. And the scale of it is being recognised. So there are signs of hope, because we make a fuss about it in the kind of ways that we do, and we get it in the neck. And because a few brave teachers have done that as well.
But we do think that this should be, you know, gender confusion in the way where it's treated as, you know, where it's affirmed automatically in schools is a safeguarding issue, and it ought to be raised that way. And you know, the authorities think that it's safeguarding the other way. You know, if you don't affirm a child, that's a safeguarding issue. But we say no, you know, so we can't very politicise. But they're using safeguarding that way, so we need to start saying no. This isn't, you know, this isn't safe. This isn't good. But this is harmful to children. You can't just let them justify it to be the other way.
No. Just to comment on curriculum in schools, it's up to the head teacher to decide what curriculum is in their school. So if any of you are making complaints, well, why are you covering this stuff, or you shouldn't be doing these kind of things at school, and the head teacher says, oh, well, it's just this organisation, or well, it's the government, they say teach this, or actually it's the head teachers themselves who must take the responsibility. They're the gatekeeper of what is taught through their school. And so if ever you come up to a point and you feel like you're not getting anywhere and you've made complaints, eventually you may have to make a complaint about the head teacher to the chairman of governors, chairwoman of governors, and then they have to properly investigate the head teacher as to whether or not they're doing things they shouldn't be doing or not. So it's worth knowing the head teacher is really the main gatekeeper, the person responsible. They might be part of a multi-academy trust, they might be part of diocese, but it's still the head teacher really who carries the can for what content is delivered in the curriculum in their particular school.
We really need a very brave head to, you know, just trial against it all and say this is not in my school, and you know, a risk of their jobs it would be. Is there any heads here? You are? What age, what kind of school do you work in? Oh, great. Excellent. Good, thank you.
Probably safe if you are. Questions there, and where are we? Got the microphone there? Everybody's going to get through.
Hi, thank you so much. It's really super helpful. I'd like to come back on what's the right to opt out in consultation. I think a lot of the teachers are actually uncomfortable, and everyone's trying to avoid a conversation with the parents and not just what's going on. So we've had a couple of cases where at the beginning of the year I asked to see the book list of what would be right at school. And then a couple of my children came home and mentioned conflicts that were definitely LGBTQ plus that have not been mentioned in their recent book. And so I'm like, well, you're not being very transparent as to the teachers the book list. So where does that fall within the right of consultation if actually the curriculum is somewhat being hidden from you? This was at the time of the 5-year-olds. You know, you can't prove it's deliberate for maybe less innocent topics. And then on the right, you mentioned that they have to take into account what's age appropriate as you face, but I don't think there are any people off face, any face, teaching the children in my school. So they actually don't know what that means, whereas the LGBTQ plus is very visible. Face is something quite inner, it's not nearly as nicely involved. And so, like, other than quoting things from the Bible, how I help the teachers see that they may be interfering with the face. And then on the age appropriate thing, every time come back and say, oh, we do it in an age appropriate way. And I'm like, well, I don't think it's age appropriate. I've seen the material. I'm doing here, and I think it's not age appropriate. And I've seen increasingly starting the government, which I don't think is age appropriate. So they'll go, oh, it's government approved. Like, well, I disagree. I don't think it's age appropriate.
So to summarise the three questions there. The first one was about hiding of books. And you got on there and how to address that. Second one was how do we help teachers understand that it's very with your faith by explaining things. The third one was really about who decides the age appropriate. sort of things. So, I mean, with the first one, they are obliged to properly consult you about the policy, and as part of that, show you the kinds of things that they will be using in teaching. So they're obstructing that desired transparent process. So that's grounds for a formal complaint to the school for evidentially obstructing your ability to see key books. And it's very interesting, the investigation that they would do with find. It was very interesting. It happened to be the 2 LGBT books that were not shown to the parents. So I think that if the head teacher was complicit in that, it would be a complaint against the head teacher. If the head teacher didn't know that they weren't handling it properly, well, then make a complaint to the head teacher, so the head teacher can investigate and then rightly apologise, change the culture of school so that they are much more fully transparent next time. If it's the head teacher, then you must complain to the chair of governance that there's been an obstructed process in terms of this, because it's a legal requirement to do that. Do you want to push back on it?
I presume you have a right to make a subject matter to was at the beginning of the school year and say all the curriculum.
Yeah, it's better to use in terms of RSE, the specific guidance that says what the school should do in terms of RSE. Is it primary school?
Yeah, it's even slightly younger, and it wasn't part of it was just part of what you equality between boys and girls, and it was read to 5-year-olds as well. Early to read.
So this is a blurring of the lines. It's just merged into other parts of the curriculum, which happens all over the place. And that makes it very, very difficult. But they were going through a process in showing you books, which demonstrates they thought they needed to go through some kind of process with that set of books. So I still think you would have grounds that the complaint could be issued, and then an investigation would find that they deliberately hidden certain books, and then they would have to explain why they did those books. That even engaging them in that process is nasty to work their way through, and it's worth putting the shot across their bows by doing that, I would say. The second thing was about how do we help teachers without putting lots of Bible verses at them to recognise that your faith is being interfered with. I think it's really important to engage at an early stage with your children's school, to build relationships with the people who are teaching your children. Parents are very busy people, but you need to, especially when your children are younger, take the opportunity to get involved in your primary school, become the government, be the one that goes in and hears the readers, get involved in a relationship with those teachers there at school you possibly can. Go to the parents' evenings. When you're invited to go to things to connect, because your children spend 5 hours a day, 13 hours a week, 6 hours a day long at these schools. So engage with the people that are engaging with your children, so you've got a relationship to be able to talk to them about these kinds of things. And hopefully they'll understand you in faith, because you'll live it out and you'll demonstrate in the way in which you express yourself. You'll say things like, I'm praying for you, as a teacher. I'm really looking forward to the Christmas celebrations that are coming up, or the Easter celebrations. Have you thought of using these resources, putting them towards things? Play an active, engaged part in that. And then when you're talking to them about, these things don't really align with my faith, they won't immediately think of some strange, bigoted person from a distance coming in to use anti-equality, because you will have done the hard work of building relationships with them. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult, isn't it, to be able to engage with those teachers and explain to them what your faith is. But you do have rights, and as we've said, religion is a protected characteristic alongside all the others. There is no hierarchy, so you can explain for the Equality Act, if you like, to them that your religious belief is a protected belief, alongside sex, sexual orientation, gender reassignment, not being transgender, but gender reassignment, and the other ones. The third bit was about age appropriate. Who decides? The teachers are deciding all the time what's age appropriate for your children, probably without you. So the trust that you put onto those teachers, you have to recognise you're doing that already by giving your children to these teachers. They're constantly deciding these questions. And so again, get engaged, especially with the primary school. Get as engaged as you can be. Talk to your children. Find out what your children are being told, because it may well be that you disagree with what they think is age appropriate, and then you need to talk to your children about that and talk to the school about that. There's no other way around it than getting as engaged as you can be with your school. I don't know if that's a helpful answer. It's a bit challenging the way I've answered it, but yeah, there might be some pushback on that. What are we doing? Go over here. Let's go over here. Oh, okay, we're going there, sorry, thank you.
Hello, thank you for the talk tonight. It's been so enlightening. Yeah, I'm a former classroom teacher. I left the classroom recently, and partly because of this reason, but other pressures as well. But I wanted to talk about my daughter. She was 5 at the time, she's 6 now, and she came home and she said, Mummy, there's a boy in my class, and he's now a girl. And then I said, oh, okay. And I said, what do you mean? She was like, oh, he said that he wants to be addressed as a girl, and he wants to dress up as a girl. And so he keeps going back and forth from being a boy, being a girl. And I didn't know how to handle it. So I said, so what do you think about that? And she said, well, I don't think that's right. And I said, okay, because I thought to myself, I didn't want to push anything on her. So I don't know if I even handled it right. So my question is, how do you handle that when, especially at such a young age? I think that just took me back, where she is 5 years old and she's coming up to me and saying, oh, my classmate is changing from a boy and a girl. And I said, oh, what does the parents think about it? And they said, oh, the parents seem fine about it. And she goes, no, but God has made you a boy or a girl for a reason. It's going to be taught. Well, how do you handle that? Like, if it's obviously there's going to be more legends being removed as they get older. So how do you handle it? How do you, right, what do you do?
Parents, you have authority.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen.
Parents, you have been given authority by God to train up your children in the way they should go. When they are old, they will want to agree. You're already there. There was a mother who trained son or daughter, trained your daughter in the way they should go. And they were already saying, that's not right, this is right. Your children, by you as a parent, can be shown what is authentic and true, what is right. There's many studies have been done in trying to help bank tellers and people who work in banks be able to work out what forgeries are, and they try to teach them to work out where the forgeries is it that part's been forged, that part's been forged, work out which it is. And that kind of training doesn't actually work for the bank tellers to be able to work out what the forgeries are. You know what the best training is? To be able to work out what the forgeries are?
Not the real stuff.
Really study the real thing.
Yes.
Really know what the real thing looks like. When another one comes along, you might not quite know what's wrong with it, but
No, it's not the real.
if you train up your children the way they should go, parents, with the authority that you've been given, then there is incredible protection, incredible help in educating them in the right direction. And the first thing I'd say is have confidence in the authority that God has given you as a parent. Because you're told you don't really know what you're doing this. They really know what they're doing. You, as a parent, have got particular wisdom, particular grace, special understanding from God about the children He has given to you. And I encourage you to be confident in that you won't get it 100% right. None of us do. But in combination with God's people and in understanding the blessing that He's given to you, that He never gave you your children without promising you to help you with your children. Because they're not your children anyway, are they? They're His children. Can I ask you to help you do that? Can I just, please?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. So with that, should I wait to the teacher and speak to the teacher about that? You mentioned it, because I didn't. But would you suggest that would have been the next step to just kind of address it? I don't know.
My hope is that the parents have a good relationship with the teachers, particularly when their children are young, that they feel free to be able to have those conversations with those teachers to say, I'm thinking this, I'm not sure this is pretty good, is it? Can you explain to me what's happening? Is this how we would teach my child? Is this how we would train? If you don't have that conversation with the teacher at all, they just think, well, everybody else is this program, and nobody else is saying anything about it. So I would encourage you to speak up and to raise your voices. It's really challenging to do so because you don't know what about it will make things difficult for your child, and I understand all the fears around all of that. But there's a holy confidence that the Lord can give you to bravely face these conversations that can help not just your child, but all of the children in school. So I would encourage people to, I wouldn't say that in every circumstance that I know exactly that that's the right advice, because there are many different nuances to what's going on, but generally, I think parents are more inclined to, I'll just not try to avoid this as much as we can. No confidence. I think at this time, it's really the play.
Thank you. Can I just see your hands if you've got questions? I can just see how many more questions go through. Okay, great. Everyone on this side.
Let me join those who have expressed their appreciation for your presentations. But for Rebecca, you cited indeed something that is among several in the relationships, education and relationship sex education, statutory guidance about pupils at the end of primary school, that they should know marriage represents a formal and legally recognized commitment of two people to each other without separating whether male or female, which I find it hard. But I wonder, this is statutory guidance, which really is suggesting it's not mandatory, they say, because when you read in the introduction, if I may just quickly refer to it, it says schools must have regard to the guidance. The minister has produced this guidance, and sometimes particularly activists are promoting places in this guidance as if it is a must be or else. It may come over that way, but would you like to comment on the legal implications in this statement of guidance?
Well, I mean, it has a statement of guidance, but it must be followed with regard to words of it. It's difficult to get around that really, because that's statutory guidance. And though it's actually got the same force as legislation, it's all part of the law of the land. And unfortunately, that's where we've got to. We've allowed that to allow things to get to this state effectively.
It would be possible to say that we have given regard to this. We've done all of these things that now tell us that we're not going to follow that particular bit. That is possible, but it's if you take it to a court of law, you probably have to get to a court of law to prove whether they had in terms of must following the guidance, but they had followed that guidance. It's only going to be proved in the court of law to determine that, I guess.
Yeah, because the recent cases Judge Humphreys has challenged is that the minister or the Secretary of State can give guidance without seeing it as it's a piece of legislation by Parliament, and so due regard or just statutory guidance must not be seen as mandatory. Hence, at the very end of it, it adds that if you should have rules and a reason of not following it, you should make sure that you give reasons for that. You should give reasons for that because it is not mandatory. A minister can give a regulation and a guidance, but it's not that piece of legislation to mandate about Parliament. That's what I think.
So is there a challenge going on? Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So there are certain areas in this which must be seen as guidance, but they're not mandatory. The Minister of State is just giving guidance. You should decide by giving reasons whether your reasoning is acceptable or not, but it is not mandatory.
Right, that's good. Thank you.
Well, guidance does have, whether it's mandatory or they say must or not, it has a certain power to calls reflections in the schools and in society, and it's really important that we're vigilant around all the guidance that's produced on what variety there is. There's guidance around the planning, for example, of RSE, which had some really helpful things in it that we could lean on, that was important for all schools to take fully account of. Thank you for raising it.
Thank you.
Good presentation, Stephen. My question is not so much on having school age children. It's just on influence because it's not feel work in the nature. But so the price for those plus working in a corporate environment, which is moving heavily towards this LGBT agenda, financing, that sort of thing. My sense is that silence is not an option. We have to look at the system. You lose their jobs, and the rights to talk about today, human rights that protecting characteristics and faith. Does it apply to both of us as employees? Does that something? Also, when another organisation has introduced policies and procedures, particularly they consult trade unions, HR, senior management